Hey friend, I want to talk with you about why I believe America is a great nation. And really why I believe America is the greatest nation. And there's a reason why so many people around the world have wanted to come here. And many have given their lives to come here. And I want to share with you 3 reasons why I believe America is great. And I'll talk more about this maybe on my Facebook or maybe on our Legacy Church Facebook. We are Legacy Church of Harlem, Georgia. But 3 reasons, and here's the first one. Number 1 is freedom. America was built on freedom. In the First Amendment alone, there's so much to celebrate about our freedoms. You see, many people around the world do not have freedom of religion. But we're free to worship God or not worship God. We're free to pray, to read our Bible. We're free to go to church or not go to church. You can go to any church you want to. Think about this. In China, they cannot go to a church unless it's registered with the government. You can't have a church unless it's registered with the government. So if you're going to go to church as a Christian and you're not registered with the government, you have to meet in secret. That's why so many Christians in China have to meet in secret. Think about the Muslim world, where so many people in Muslim countries are not free to not be Muslim. They're not free to change their religion and come out of Islam. You're not free to go to a Muslim country and promote Christianity. I mean, you're just not free. Try going to Saudi Arabia and building a Christian church. It ain't going to happen. But in America, the rest of the world can come here and build other churches and worship whatever religion they want to. That's the beauty of America, because in America, we're built on Christianity. And Christianity is the one religion that says, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And so religious freedom, but not only that, the First Amendment gives us rights of free speech. And so I can tell people about my sweet Jesus without going to jail. In so many countries, you can't do that. You can say things that people don't like. By the way, that's why we have a First Amendment. It's because you can say things that people don't like. Because if everybody said what everybody wanted to hear, there'd be no need for a First Amendment. And so you're free to protest. You're free to protest even our government. Try doing that in North Korea. You're free to gather together, to march, to protest. And that's a beautiful thing in America. You're even free to burn the American flag. Now, shame on you if you do. You're free to kneel during the national anthem. You know why I don't? It's because I feel like if I did, I would be protesting the very freedoms that God has given me in America. And I feel like I would be dishonoring the men and women who have fought, and many of them who have died for those freedoms. And so in America, another beautiful thing is the freedom to vote and to choose our leaders, and to even run for office if you want to. Man, we are free in America. But here's the other thing. Number 2, America is great because it is the land of opportunity. In our Declaration of Independence, it says we have an inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, you can pursue happiness. Nobody's going to give it to you. But think about this. In America, you have the opportunity to get a free education for 12 years. I mean, that in itself is incredible. You're free to study hard. You have the opportunity to do your homework, to be the best that you can be. And so in America, you're free to dream. You're free to pursue those dreams. That's a great opportunity. You can become a lawyer. You can become a farmer like my dad, or a doctor, or a hairdresser, or a mechanic, or a truck driver. You can pursue writing a book or pursue starting a business. Man, you're just free. And did I mention you get a free education? And so in America, you can grow up in poverty in Savannah, Georgia, and then later on be on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Think about this. You can grow up in a poor neighborhood and end up in the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball. I mean, literally, you can become a millionaire overnight. The beauty of America and the opportunity. But more than positions and money, you have the opportunity to fulfill your God-given purpose, fulfill your God-given potential. And the Bible says that to whom much has been given, much is expected. And did I mention that you get a free education? I'm just telling you, this is a wonderful land of opportunity. But also, this is a great country because we have a great heritage. And what I mean by that is, on our money, it still says, in God we trust. In God we trust. Not in Buddha, not in Muhammad, not in Allah or whoever you might think of, but it says, in God we trust. And on our Pledge of Allegiance, we say, one nation under God. One nation under God. In our Declaration of Independence, it makes reference to God 4 different times in a very reverent way. And so we have a godly heritage in America. Now, I'm hearing a lot about this 1619 project. And from what I can tell, it seems to be a distortion of the overall picture of America. As a matter of fact, I don't hear very much about the 1620 pilgrims. The very next year, who came here on the Mayflower, which, by the way, there were no slaves on that ship. And they came here to escape religious persecution. And there's so much we could say about that. But let's fast forward about 150 years, and we come to really when we became a nation. We declared our independence in 1776. Now, I want you to think about what was happening leading up to that time period. America was going through what some historians called the Great Awakening. And it was a great revival, and people were turning to God, and it was led by men like George Whitefield, who was a great preacher, and other preachers. And then in the midst of this, we took on the most powerful country in the world. We were not a country, so we didn't have an army, we didn't have a navy, but we took on the most powerful navy in the world. All we had was some pitchforks and maybe a few guns. But by a miracle of God, we took on the most powerful country in the world and won. And as they were gathered together for the Constitutional Convention, it was men like Ben Franklin who said this. He said, if a sparrow can't fall to the ground without the Father seeing it, he said, then what makes us think we can build a country without seeking His aid? And he said, I'm calling for prayer in this meeting. And so he was a man that sought God. And now at this time, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. And what is the elephant in the room? And that is, I believe, slavery. Which brings us to the question, why didn't our founding fathers stop slavery right at the beginning of our country, especially if we've got such a godly heritage? And the thing is, I don't know. I mean, I've got some thoughts about it, and maybe I'll share that later. And I do believe that slavery is our biggest mistake. It's our biggest sin outside of abortion, that is, which has killed over 63 million children. But slavery is a great sin of America, and obviously they should have done more. And so let me just acknowledge right now to my African American brothers and sisters in our country to say that and acknowledge that you guys have had a long, hard journey in America. And I'm sorry for the journey that you guys have had and how hard it's been. But I want you to hear my heart, if you will, and what I believe is a bigger picture, especially as it relates to Christianity. So here it is. First of all, understand that many of our founding fathers were against slavery. There's men like Ben Franklin, who was the president of the Pennsylvania Abolition Society. And then there's men like John Jay, who was the president of the Continental Congress, who was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But he was also the founder and president of the New York Society for promoting the manumission of slaves, or the abolition of slavery. And there's so many others that were Christians that fought hard against slavery. But let's fast forward to the Civil War and think about what was happening leading up to the Civil War. It is what historians called the Second Great Awakening, especially in the North, led by men like Charles Finney and other great preachers who preached hard against slavery. Men like Lyman Beecher, who was an abolitionist preacher, and he had a daughter named Harriet Beecher Stowe, and she heard her dad preaching against slavery and standing against it. And in one of his messages, she had a vision from God, and she was so moved by God, and she was so troubled by the sin of slavery, and she came home and she wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. And some would say that it was because of that book that it exposed the horrible things of slavery that we went into the Civil War. And as a matter of fact, it's been said that Abe Lincoln met her after she wrote the book and said, "I finally get to meet the lady who started this whole thing." But listen, there was a lot of Christians who fought against slavery. Think about this. In the Civil War, over 2 million white men fought against slavery. Over 360,000 white men fought and died to stop slavery. And so there's, I believe, a greater picture than what I'm hearing in so many circles today that's just saying America is a racist country, America is an evil country. But I believe America is great because it has a Christian heritage and it has Christian principles. And that's why men like Martin Luther King Jr. held up those principles. And by the way, he was a great man of God. And he held them up and he said, we hold these truths, these principles. He says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal. Now he said, and he acknowledged, that we in America have not held up those principles. We have not done a good job with those principles, but he didn't say that the principles themselves were wrong and needed to be abolished. As a matter of fact, Martin Luther King went on to say that because of the positive changes that he was seeing, he said that it may be that within the next 40 years, we might be able to have a black president of the United States. And isn't it amazing? About 44 years after he said that, in 2008, America voted in the first African-American president of the United States. And that's amazing in and of itself, because only 13% of the population at the time was African-American. That means that not once but twice, the majority of people who voted for him were white. And so, listen, there's always been racism, and as long as Jesus has not come back, and there's going to be sin in the hearts of some people, there's going to be sin in all of us, but I believe there's a bigger picture than just believing that America has always been just a racist country. And so I believe America is great because of a godly heritage. Men like George Liele, who was the first African-American missionary to leave our shores. Really, he was the first person to leave our shores as a missionary in America. Men like Martin Luther King Jr., men like Charles Finney and Billy Graham, and we can go on and on. But I believe America is also great because America has supported the nation of Israel. God's chosen people who gave us the Messiah, Jesus Christ, who gave us the Bible. And Israel is the only country in the Middle East that truly has democracy. And God told Abraham concerning his descendants, he says, I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse those who curse you. And I believe part of the blessings of America has been because we have stood with Israel. And I hope we'll continue to do that. But let me just close by saying this, that America, it seems to me, has drifted away from God. And I believe God is calling us back to putting Him first and to realize that America is great because of its freedom, great because of the opportunity, and great because of our godly heritage. But it's like God told the nation of Israel in 2 Chronicles 7:14. He said, if my people who are called by my name, that's us who are Christians. He said, if you will humble yourselves and pray and seek my face and turn from your wicked ways, he says, then I will hear from heaven. I'll forgive your sins and I'll heal your land. And America needs a healing. And so listen, if you have listened to what I've said, I hope and pray that you'll at least consider what I've talked about. And I hope and pray that you will know that I love you and I love our country. And God bless you and God bless America.